All right, welcome back for part 10 in the modular inventory tutorial series. And this time I'll add a little menu on the items so you can do different actions. So here I can drop this one, I can use it if it's a usable item. And if you go to the shop, this one, you could sell the item. So sell, and I'm gonna get 1 coin. And if you're not in the shop, you cannot access this one. And after that, I'll show how you can create a resource using the save and load resource that we made last time to help you test your game faster with pre-made inventory or stats for the players. And after all of that, I'll talk about how I go about adding new features to the inventory because I'm using it in my other games. So in my game Balls Invader, I have this system. I also have items that have inventory in them. So when I add a container in my belt, it adds the inventory inside my main inventory panel. And this one is a prototype. I added the materials on the items. So for example, this mace and this sword and shield, they all have different material. So this one is a mace and it has an iron handle and a gold head. And the sword has a ice blade with a gold handle. So all of those are using the same inventory system. I just added some features in it. Yeah, you can add pretty much anything you need in there. I'll show what is the step I use to add a new feature to this inventory system. All right, so let's start with the little menu for the items. So I'll go in my UI folder, I'll add a new scene, and I'll call that item action menu. So it's going to be the different action you can execute on the items. It's going to be a user interface. I'm going to change the anchor to be completely in the top left and the size also. So let's resize that just to be in one point because that's not the one that's going to move. In here, I'm going to add a pop-up menu. So here, pop-up menu and create. So this one will be the one that we'll see. If I show it, you can see it's in the corner there, but then I'll change the panel behind. It's going to be in theme override here and style, and it's going to be the panel. But instead of doing it manually again, since it's the same as pretty much the inventory, so I'll see inventory, TSCN, and this one, theme override style, it already has a style box. Let's right click and copy. Then if I come back, I can simply paste it in the panel, and that should be good. But yeah, since it's a pop-up menu, it will always hide itself to show it. Then for the text inside, I'll do the same. So I'll open the font and the colors, and I'll pick the colors and font from the inventory here. So the panel name, so from the label. And if I go at the bottom in theme override, fonts, I can copy this one and bring it to the item action menu, font, paste, and I'll do the same for the color. Colors, font color. Oh, and this one, for colors, you can simply click the little plus button at the bottom here, and it will add it to a quick color picker at the bottom. So if I just go back to my item menu here, font, color, I can click it right there, and it's set. So that's good. Let's rename this control to item action menu. Let's add a script to that. Item action menu and create. Then inside here, let's remove everything. I'm gonna extend scale control. So this little menu will scale also like all the others. Then here I'll get a reference to the pop-up menu. I like to use my export node path just in case later I modify this structure, I don't have to change this reference. So yeah, item menu, get node, item menu as pop-up menu, pretty much it. Then we'll have all the action that are possible for the items in an array. So var actions is an empty array. Yeah, when we'll start, we won't have anything in the actions and we'll set it based on the item that has been clicked for our functions. So functions will have display. So and pass. So yeah, when we'll call this, we'll show the menu. But here we'll need the slot that has been clicked. From that, we'll be able to look at the item and know what to do. Because you could also do a sort, like for sorting your inventories. So yeah, so we'll get the slot here. And then what we'll do here is we'll place the pop-up menu at the right position. So it's going to be the item menu dot rect global position is equal to the slot dot the same thing rect global position. Now the item menu has a list of string which will be displayed when you activate the pop-up. When we display it, we'll clear it. So item menu dot clear. Nothing will be in there. Then we'll do the same for the actions. So actions is equal to nothing, an empty array. Then we can add the action we need. But instead of just adding them here, I'll create a function just for that. So function add action, and this one will get a name. So action name and the action itself, the function to call. The action name will be what is going to be displayed in the list, and the action here is a reference to a function that will be called if you click this text. So here what we'll do is set the action, so actions, and append the action, and then we'll add the item to the item menu. So menu dot add item, and here we'll set the action name. There you go. So now we have that. Let's go back up and we'll add an action. So here add action, and the name will be drop, and now the action will be to drop the item. So what we'll do is on the inventory slot, we'll add a function to be able to drop the item inside of it. And then here we'll get a reference to that function with funcref. So funcref will give us a reference to it, so we can call it later whenever we need to. And the arguments are the object, so the slot, the instance we want to call the function on, and then the function name. So here it's going to be drop item. So for now, we would only have one option, and it will call the function drop item on the slot. Now we'll have to add this function. So let's go in the inventory slot GD. Let's go at the bottom and right there. Let's make some place, and then function drop item, and then what we'll do is we'll get the old item. Well, the current item that will be the old one. So the old item is the item. Then what we'll do is we'll remove it from the slot. So set item to null. So this will remove the item from it. We need to keep a reference before doing that, else the item will not be available anymore. And then after that, we'll just emit the signal item drop, like what we do in the inventory manager when we click the void filter to drop the item on the ground. So here, signal manager emit signal item drop, and we'll pass the old item. There we go. So that's it. This function will drop the item. We'll go back into the item action menu, and then we need to show this little menu. So we'll call item menu dot pop up. So this will show the menu. That's it. And then just to be sure that the size is correct, we'll say item menu dot rect size is equal to vector 2.0. This will just make it as small as you can. Unless you want it to have always the same size, you can change that, but this will just place the item inside, then it will shrink it so it fits perfectly. Now we should be able to test that. We just need to add this menu to the UI, and also if I click the action menu, I need to set the variable item menu, assign pop-up menu. All right, I'll save this one. I'll go in my main. Oh yeah, we also need to add it to the inventory manager. So in the inventory manager scene, I'll get the item action menu in here and drag it inside. So right there. So in the inventory manager, I'll go at the top and I'll add another reference to this one. So add a new item menu as control. And here we need to leave it as control because the parent node of this, the root node of the item action menu, is a control. So now that we have that, we can set it in the inspector. Click inventory manager, item menu, assign item action menu. All right. Now we want it to appear when we right click an item. So we'll go down when we do the GUI input on GUI input slot. And inside here, we already have if it's a button click, press, and if the button is left. And at the bottom here, we have if the button is right. And if it's usable, then we use it directly. But that will change. So here, just for now, we'll do else if, and we'll copy this part. If the button is right and we have an item inside, then we simply call the item menu dot display, and this needs the slot. There we go. Oh, and I almost forgot that on the item action menu, we also need another function. So when we click on our action, we execute it. So if we go back in the UI, if you select your pop-up menu, you can go in the node tab. where we have all of our signals, and I'll select the ID pressed and double click that. On pop-up menu, ID pressed. Let's connect. So here we'll get the ID of the action from the menu, which is the index that has been clicked. So in here, what we can do is simply call the actions, then the index ID, and at the end, since those are function reference from here, we can simply call them. So what we'll do is call func, and there we go. So with that, if we start the game, we can right click anything and drop. So it drops the item on the ground. If I put it in my inventory, go away, right click, drop, and yeah, it's on the ground. So work. Now let's add the function for a usable item. So if you right click a usable item, we would like to see the use. But if we pick something that is not usable, like a material, if we right click it, we should only see drop. So let's look at that. So here we'll need to get the action that are possible on the items, and we'll simply ask the components for their action if they have any. So here after the drop, what we'll do is for each component in slot.item.components. So for each of those, we'll check if it does not have the method. So copy this again because the C will be a key. If you're looping on a dictionary, it's going to be the key. If you're looping on an array, it's going to be the object. That's how you can remember that. So here I need to pass C, so the index of this component, and I want to know if this one has the method, and I'll create a function get action. If it does not have the get action, we'll just continue the loop. And after that, if it didn't continue, that means that there is an action. So we'll do var action is equal to the slot item component C dot get action. So this will return the name of the component action and the action, what we need to pass in the add action function. So after that, we'll be able to add an action, and it's going to be action.name with action.function. Now let's see. In all of our components of our items, for now there's pretty much only the usable item that has an action. You could add the action on equipment maybe to equip the item faster. Just right click the item and select equip. That could be done. So for now, we'll go on the usable item and add that. So usable item usable at the bottom here. Let's make some place, and then func get action, and that's going to be simple. We'll return a dictionary which will contain the name, which will be equal to use. You could override this action in all your different usable items. So upgrade could be upgrade, the potion could be drink. You could change this text in all of the others. And then the function will be equal to the function reference of this one, so self. It's this script we want to call the function in, and the function is use. And yeah, the little function here, use. That's what we want to call. And yeah, so that's it. We'll return the name and the function, a reference to the function. So if we go back in our little menu, we'll add this action if the item has something usable. So if we start the game, if I right click a potion, I do have use. I can click it. It's not going to use it because it's not usable right now since it needs to be in my inventory. So if I use it now, it works. Probably you could hide it if it's not available. You could add more to it. Now let's add just another one. So for example, selling an item in the shop. I have a crafting table, which is a shop. So I could use this one as my shop right now. So if I go in my inventory manager, I'll keep a variable here to know if the shop is open. So var is shop open, and it's going to be false when you start the game. And then in the item action menu, we'll just add at the end another action if the shop is open. So if the inventory manager is shop open, then we'll add the action. Well, I'll copy this one, I'll put it there. So sell, and the function reference will be the slot, and we'll call sell item. Now we'll add this little function, sell item, in the inventory slot, like we did with the drop item. So let's go in the inventory slot, right under the drop item, I'll add another function sell item pass. So here, what we'll do is simply remove the item and give a coin to the player. You could have a price tag on each item and stuff like this, but since I don't have it now, I'll just give a coin. Yeah, I'm not gonna really check anything else. You could have also, like, you cannot sell some items and yeah, different things like that. So for now, I'll just remove item and then inventory manager. I'll add items. So add items is using an array of items. So I'll call the item manager and I'll ask him to get an item, which is going to be of ID gold coin. Now we want to add this gold coin in the player inventory. There we go. So just a recap, inventory manager will add items, which is only one gold coin in the player inventory, and we'll remove the current item. And that should be shown only if the shop is open. So let's see how we can know if the shop is open or closed. Because for now, it's basically a crafting list. Well, each table is a crafting list. So if we go in the crafting list, UI, the TSCN here, and if we focus on it, this list, if we open the code, we have a signal on crafting opened, and we have a list ID. This is based on the JSON file with all the different crafting lists. And I know that one of them is called shop. So here, what I'll do is if this list ID is equal to shop, then I'll set the shop as open. Inventory manager is shop open, and it's going to be true. So the shop is now open. Now, when we close the shop, we want that to hide. So we have the out of range, but if the player clicks the X at the top, it's not going to call the out of range. So this script extends window, and if we go in window, we'll see that the window itself has the close function. So what we can do is override this close in the crafting list. So let's close this one. So here we can simply add function close, and what we'll do is we'll call the parent close function with the dot before. It's going to call the parent, and after that we'll just set the shop as false, is not open. And then when we are out of range, instead of simply hide, then we'll call the close function. There you go. So if we save that and start the game, if we pick some items and put them in our inventory, and now if I go to the shop, so if I open another one and right click, there's nothing here. If I go to the shop and open it, now I can sell. And if I sell, I get a coin. And sell this one and this one. So 3 coins. There you go. It might not be the best way to do the shop. It's not really a shop, but it shows you how you can add anything to the little list of actions, simply with reference to function. So now I'll show you how you can use the resources for the saving and loading the game to test your game faster. So if we go in the data folder and the resources, so we have the game data, player data, and settings data. That's it. Now, if we want to, let's say, test our game at some point, but we don't want to create items in the game, we want it to be fast and efficient to test. So what you can do is here create a new resource. So new resource, and it's going to be the player data. So player data resource, and I'll call that rich player data, and save that. And so yeah, now that I have this one, I can open it, and in the inspector here, the global position, I'll leave it the same. So it's going to start at the start position, but the inventories, I can already set them. So I know I have 3 inventories. I'll have to do a new key, which is a string. This is one tedious way to edit the dictionaries in the editor. That's why I like the JSON file. But this works well if you want it, because once it's set, you don't have to modify it anymore. So yeah, here we have equipment, the equipment inventory. The value is a dictionary. So then you click the add key pair, and we'll add a new one, new key, string. The next one is inventory left, and the value is a dictionary again, and add this one. And the last one will be string inventory right, and the dictionary, add key pair. All right. Then in the inventory left, if you click the dictionary, it's going to open it. So here, what we'll do is we'll add a integer, which is going to be the index of the slot in the inventory. So I'll put it in slot 3, and then we'll add a new dictionary, which is going to be the item data. So let's resize that. Now we have the slot number 3, we'll add a dictionary for the item data. We'll click the add key value pair. So we have this slot. Now if we click this dictionary, this one is going to be the item data. So I'll add a string, which is going to be the ID of the item. Then the value will be the ID of the item. So gold coin, add it, and I'll add another one, string. Then it's going to be the quantity. Now that's where you can add anything in your item. You could set its properties already. And yeah, so you could put a helmet and already put it unique and give it some super strong stats or medium stats depending on what you want to test in your game. So then the quantity is going to be a integer, and I'll do 1000 gold and add that. So to recap this, if I close everything, I have 3 inventories, the equipment, inventory left and right. If I open the first dictionary, it's all the different slots inside. So in the slot number 3, I have a dictionary, which is the item data, and I have the ID, gold coin, I have the quantity, 1000. This could all be changed for other resources. It could help. And I guess eventually, I guess the best way to edit all of that inside of Godot would be to get a custom editor for the inventory. That could be interesting to do. I'll see if I can add that at some point, maybe. So if I close all of these, now to use this one. So if I go in the player inventory, here I have the player data. This is the basic one, the default one. Now what I can do is use the rich player data and put it there. So if I start the game, it should load this inventory. Start. Now, in my inventory, I already have 1000 gold. So with that, you can test, let's say you're shopping. So now you can buy everything. So let's buy this, let's buy a sword and a shield. And the thing is, this can go over the max stack size, but if you split the stack, you won't be able to join them again because it's not supposed to be that high. So you can kind of do some glitchy item. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Now that's it for the custom resources that you can do to help you. Maybe one last thing I can just mention before going to the next part is for the stats. If I go in my stats JSON file, let's say you want your strength to increase your damage, then you would simply use the affected by here. So if I would copy that and go to the damage here, plus something damage, affected by, and I would put the strength here, strength damage. So that for every point in strength, you would get 1 more damage. And this could be different too. If you want that the strength increase the damage less, you could do 0.5 or anything like that. So there's that. So now let's talk about how I go about adding a new feature to the inventory. So if you want to add your own feature, you know a bit more where to start. So I guess I'll show you the functions that are not in this tutorial, but I added in my other games. And yeah, kind of just talk about what I did when I added different functions. So here in Ball's Invaders, the items can have a inventory inside. So they can be a container. So if I go and look at inventory, I have item inventory. And this item inventory script is a component. If an item in the data has the tag inventory, let's see the data. Right there, I have container 1, container 2, and tiny bag. It's a type container. The type is only to show the type of the item in the item info. I do have sounds in the game. So here I have the sound type. And when you move the item around, it's going to play this type of sound. So that's pretty cool. I do use the item levels. I do have a price tag on the items. And this is multiplied or added with the rarity or the different stats they might have on. And then here we have inventory size 2. So all of those tags are checked when I create the item, and it will apply the correct component. And also those inventory size tag, they're not only used for the container, they can be used for anything. So I could have a sword with inventory size, it would work. So if I go back in the game, so when I generate my item here, it's pretty much like in the tutorial. I do check if the data has the inventory size, then I'll just set the component inventory to the item inventory, and I'll say new self. I'll pass the item itself, and I'll send the size of the inventory. So if you want to add something to it, most of the time I start by thinking at what I must add in the data of the item, and then I go inside, I create the component. So here, the item inventory. I initialize the data of it. I'll create an inventory for this one, and I'll set its name and everything. All of the other functions that the components use, so the set info, so I'll display the size of this inventory. So since this is an inventory inside the inventory, when I save the game, I need to come inside this one and get its data. So I do have the get data, so I can save the content of this container. And also, yeah, the other thing is the icon for the gold is changing depending on the amount of gold you have. So I do have a component which is item quantity icons in the data. It's the first one, coins. So I do have gold coin, and I do have quantity icons. So if it's below or equal to this number, it's gonna pick a different icon. And at the top, it's gonna be like a big stack of gold coin. That's another thing you can add there. And I also have the can be sold, so I cannot sell different items. So yeah, when you want to add something, I guess you would need to start from the data here. Then you go in the code and add the component, and then you can look at how the component will interact with different things in the game. The quantity icons, if I go inside, it will listen to the quantity change of the item, and when it changes, it will just check, oh, do I need to change my texture, my sprites? So that's pretty much it. And it doesn't set anything in the info, so the set info just passed. It's not going to do anything. So that's it for the inventory item and yeah, those little side component. And in my other prototype game, so this one is a prototype we're still working on. I'm working on that with a friend, and we're still using the basic UI from the tutorial series. And some item in here can have different material. Well, different part of the items can be of different materials. So if I look at the item script, so here I'll look if the data has materials, then if it does, then I'll set the component materials as a new item materials. And inside of here, when I initialize, so I'll get the data for this material, and if I have some options too, so I can have an item in the world set its starting materials. And most of the time when I add some component like that, I might struggle a bit, and it's a lot of trial and error. So if you try to add something and you're not sure where to start or how to do it, just keep trying, because I do struggle a lot myself when I try to design new functions. But yeah, in this one, I simply set the materials the item can have, and I set which one is the current material. And later when I instantiate it in the world, when I get the item 3D, because in this game I don't have the bag, the floor item. When you drop an item, you will drop the item 3D. This is the item 3D. So if I add an item and I don't have the mesh and I don't have anything, I will simply drop a big question mark. But if I want to have an item, I'll need to create it. So if I check for the maze and I open this scene, then I have this item. This one inherits from item 3D. It's mesh and everything like that. Its collision is set. So when I drop it in the world, I'll instantiate this one and I'll set its item. So item ID, options. Oh yeah, and this is made in Godot 4, so there might be a few differences. But yeah, the item is set inside the item 3D. So when you pick it up, you remove the mesh and you simply keep the item. And that's where, when it's ready, it's going to check if it has the component materials. And if it does, then it's going to modify the mesh material directly from the mesh instance 3D. And this one is just a quick test to add a particle emitter. So this one, I might turn this into a component or something else. Yeah. So yeah, when I started to think about adding the different materials, I started to look at in the data how I can structure them. So if I go in the data, in the items, I do have my maze here. So in this one, I have materials. And for each part, so I have the handle, the head of the maze. This is the name of the resource. So weapon wood, weapon iron, weapon gold, weapon eyes. So the handle can be any of them, and the head too. So you could make it so it cannot be one type or another. And it's still early, but we're trying to see how we could add also the different type, could do different effect or damage. And yeah, so I added the materials here. Then in the game, I use those in the component. And when the item 3D is generated, then I set those materials on the mesh. As another example, I have a crude pickaxe, which is a tool. It is a weapon too. It has the materials and everything. But at the bottom here, I added the harvest tag because I want to be able to harvest different nodes in the world. So I'm still trying to figure out the system. But yeah, the first thing I did is I came here, I added my little harvest tag, and I tried to think about how I want to use it. So what I had is a weight system. So harvest, I will get 30% chance to find the ice material, and I will get another 30% because it's between. So the first one minus the second one, it's going to be the same, 0.30. So I get 30% chance to get the gold, 30% chance to get iron, and at the end, I will get stone. So if I don't get anything, I'll get stone. So that's for the normal pickaxe. The crude one, I will always get stone. That's how I place the data for now. And then the weight is if you get it, then this dictionary is the item data. So I'll get this item or, and I'll pass in the options, which is going to be the material. But here I could generate any item. So you could harvest anything. I guess that could be used like a loot table kind of thing. But then I also have a harvestable file, which is the different node that I can have. So a tree, a rock, and here I have a ore rock, which will contain stone, and also the other, the iron, gold, and ice. So the items, the pickaxe, will only be able to harvest those one. So the ore or the stone. So it's not going to be able to harvest anything else. Then the item harvest component, item harvest. For now, it only have the dictionary of the item it can harvest and with the weight at which you can find them. And it's used by the harvestable node. So here it's my harvestable. When you attack the node with the weapon, it will check if it has harvest. If it has, then it's going to get the data from it, from the component, and it will generate a random floating number and check which one you'll find. And yeah, if you find one, it will create the item, it will loot it, will put it in your inventory. If the node doesn't have the resource you can harvest, it's not going to give you anything. But yeah, when I'm adding those features, I do struggle sometimes. Well, if you want to know how much I struggle on those little features, you can come on my Twitch channel. I stream during the weekend, and I mostly try to work on my games and stuff like that. And yeah, if you have any question on your features that you want to add to your game, I would gladly help you to brainstorm how you could add it. Because sometimes it might not be a component, it might be a different data file or something like this. But yeah, in coding, there is always 1,000 way to code stuff, and it's all correct. If it does the job, well, that's good enough. So I guess there's not much else to say. If you have a feature you want to add, I guess the best way is to start by looking at what you need. So for the data, and then for the component, if it can be a component, then you try to connect that throughout your games where it needs to be. So I guess that's gonna be it for today. I hope it was interesting at least. And yeah, if you have any question, you just have to come on the Discord. The link is in the description below. Yeah, come in and ask your questions. I'll be happy to help you. Or the Twitch also. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else. So have a good day, and a big thanks to my patrons. And yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll see you guys next time, and bye bye.